Well, hello there. This is going to be a tutorial video showing you how to use the Origin Creator tool to make these certain Origins powers that are listed on your screen right now. Now, this tutorial won't cover the basics of how to use the Origin Creator tool. For that, I suggest you watch my first Origin Creator tutorial. Now, the first power I'm going to show you how to make is how to tint the color of your player model. For this, we use the power Origins Model Color. Now, the way that this works, if you look at the Origins wiki, is that for red, green, and blue, we can put in a number between 0 and 1. And that will determine how much the red, green, and blue components of the color of your Minecraft skin will be multiplied by. So if you have them all at 1, then it would be the normal color of the skin. If you had them all at 0, it would just be pitch black. If you wanted to give a skin a general, say, reddish tint, you'd keep the red at full and then decrease the green or the blue. And what amount you would decrease the green or the blue depending on how red you want it. Like if you want it as red as it can be, you'd make green and blue 0. If you wanted it only somewhat red, you'd keep green and blue at like half. And a note here, when it comes to mixing colors, this is the RGB color mixing, not like your mix paint colors kind of thing. So something more like this kind of color mixing rather than this kind of color mixing. If you don't know how to get the color you want, I suggest going to something like Microsoft Paint, where you've got a color picker and can choose to pick any color you want, and then you can look at how much red, green, and blue it has in it. In something like this, the max red, green, or blue that one of these categories can have is 255, and then 0 is the least. So from this, you could kind of get an idea, okay, I would need to keep the blue at 1.0 and put the red like somewhere in the middle and then have a little less green if I wanted to tint the player model heavily this color. But you can also just play around with it if you prefer. Anyways, we're going to go for a magenta tint, which is just mixing blue and red in this color system. So we're just going to go full send magenta, not just a little magenta. So we're going to make the red 1, so it's red as usual, blue is 1 as usual, and then the green, we're just going to zero out completely. Now, we will see a bit of a problem with this in just a minute when we get into the game. But first we're going to add this to our Origins. And we're going to actually add this to Origin 2 simply so that my Minecraft skin isn't discolored for the entire rest of the tutorial videos. And then we can download it. Now that we've gotten over to Minecraft, you might notice that my skin does not look very magenta. I mean, the eyes are, but not anything else. And that's because of the way that this power works. All it can do is reduce the amount of red, green, or blue in your skin. Which means that black, which has no red, green, or blue, doesn't get changed at all. And if a color doesn't have all of the red, green, or blue, it may not quite be the color you're wanting. Like with my skin, if we take a look at the lime green color that makes up a lot of the details of it, you'll notice that while it's got plenty of green and a bit of red, it has no blue. Which means that when we try to make my player's skin magenta by decreasing the green, hoping to leave in the red and the blue, well, since there was 0 blue, there was no blue to show up there, and so when we zeroed out the green, all we got remaining was red. So just keep that in mind when doing the model tints, that on certain player skins, it's not going to quite show up how you wanted. You're just going to have to test it. The next power I'm going to show you how to do is how to make a power that allows you to break a block with your fists that normally requires a tool. For this case, we're just going to use stone since that's a classic. So we're going to use the power type. This allows us to modify whether or not a player can get the drops from a certain block, like the items that it would drop if you mined them with their proper tools or whatever. So for this, normally if you tried to punch stone, you wouldn't get anything. But in this case, we want to allow the player to get the cobblestone if they punch stone. So we will checkbox the allow button. I know that this does not apply silk touch. So if they break stone, they're still only going to get cobblestone, not normal stone. So now we got to say what block are we allowing them to break with their fist and get the drop of. Well, for that we use block condition. Now I'm actually going to use type origins and because I want this to be for more than one block. But if you just wanted one, you just use one of the condition type origins block. And for the block, we're just going to write the Minecraft block name, which, like as I've said a million times before in this tutorial, you can find by trying to use the /give commands to give yourself an item. So we're going to go Minecraft cobblestone. Now, something else that might be helpful if you want to do a power for punching stone specifically is to use what Origins uses for the Shulk origin to allow them to break natural stones. And for that, we're going to use the condition type origins in tag. A tag is basically like a collection of blocks. There are several Minecraft tags. You can check the Minecraft wiki, but the origin mod has one too called origins natural _stone, which includes blocks like andesite, diorite, stone, etc. Although it doesn't have all the like slabs and stuff of them, I don't think. Now, this will allow you to get the stone that you mine with your fist. It will still be very slow because this doesn't actually change your mining speed. So for that, if we wanted to increase mining speed, we would use, well, for that, we would make another power of type origins modify break speed. Now, just like our last power, we need to specify which blocks this applies to. So in fact, let's make it easy and let's go back to our last power. Select this box with the block conditions. Control C to copy on Windows. If you are on Apple, I think it'd probably be Command C. And then let's go back here, hit this box and Control V to paste or Command V. And then we don't have to type all that out again. Now we need to say, how are we modifying this break speed? For this, I'm just going to say, let's just choose addition with 0.25. I think that'll probably be fast, but we're just going to see what it looks like. And then if we don't want this power to apply when we are using like a pickaxe, then we can use the condition origins using effective tool and invert it. So this means this power is checking if we are not using the effective tool on that block, which is basically like the tool that works the best on that block. So in this case, since it's like cobblestone and stuff, it's checking are we not using a pickaxe. So then we can hop on over to Minecraft, and you'll see here, if we try to break cobblestone, we mine it really probably too fast, and we get the block to drop. Same thing as andesite. And it's blackstone. However, if we try like polished diorite, which was not in the natural stone list, it's just gonna be the same as ever. Slow punching, and it will not drop. The next power I'm going to show you how to make is basically how to give an origin permanent Frostwalker. So you could also use this set for a lot of other things. In case you don't know, Frostwalker is an enchantment that you can put on boots that makes it so that when you walk on water, it temporarily freezes the water beneath you, turning it to ice. However, as you will see, this ice does eventually start to melt and returns back to water. Now, when it comes to how we can replicate Frostwalker without actually having to use the enchantment on boots, well, we can just use the fill command, which I talked about last time, so I'm not going to go over it that much in this video, to place blocks underneath the player's feet of the very same type of ice that Frostwalker uses, which is called Minecraft frosted _ice. That way, when you place ice, instead of like all the ice in this biome here that's going to stay here forever, the ice will actually melt. So, okay, now how do we actually format a power like that? Well, when it comes to Frostwalker, we can't just use the same setup that we use for some of our other powers where you like hit a key and then something activates once, because Frostwalker needs to be something that is constantly checking, is there water underneath the player's feet, and if so, freeze it. And so we're going to use a power type that, well, technically we did use once before in the first Origins tutorial for the sake of filling back up an empty resource bar. But here we'll see a different use of it. We are going to use the power Origins Action Over Time, which basically means every however many ticks you put here, this power will run an action. Now, we want Frostwalker to check if there's water under the player pretty immediately, so we're going to take this interval all the way down to its minimum, which is 1, so it will activate every 1 tick. Now, you may have noticed the description here if you're looking at it. This one we're actually going to make work for water and lava. Although we have to set up the lava slightly differently, I'll get to that in a minute though. So anyway, now we need to tell this action over time, what action is it doing over time? And for that, well, we're actually going to use Origins and because we need to set up 2 separate commands for when it's the freezing water and freezing lava. I'll get to why that is in just a second. So first, we're going to start by using an action type that we've already used in some other powers, Origins Execute Command, which does exactly what it says. It executes a command. Though in this case, since this is using the action over time power type, instead of executing this just once whenever the player hits a key or whenever, it will execute this command every single tick. So to place ice underneath the player's feet in the water, like Frostwalker does, we're going to use the /fill command. Well, we'll /fill. So for the first corner of the area that we're going to fill, we'll just do -3, -1, -1, -3, which is 3 blocks west of the player and 3 blocks north of the player, and all of that 1 block below the player's feet, so like the block they're standing on. Oh yeah, and an important note here, unlike the sort of setup we used for the fill command in the last time where it executed at the targeted block, this one will execute at the location of the player's feet. And then we're going to make the other corner of the fill command -3, -1, -3, which is 3 blocks east, 3 blocks south, and still 1 block below the player. So basically this is like a square that's like 3 blocks out from the player in all directions. Now we can use the same exact kind of ice that the Frostwalker enchantment uses by using Minecraft:frosted_ice. This will place the special ice that Frostwalker places that automatically melts on its own anytime it's in the daytime at least, and you can't mine to make an infinite ice farm out of this power. Now, we need to specify that this will only place ice, frosted ice, over water. So for that, we're going to use the fill mode replace and specify we want it to only replace Minecraft:water. But there's a little bit more to it than that, because Frostwalker doesn't work on flowing water. So we want to add in brackets level. Future Geocat interrupting to say I did a stupid here. It's not level :0, it's level = 0, 0, which means that this will only replace a full source block of water, not any flowing water. Okay, now since this power also is going to work for lava, we have to add a second action to have a command to replace lava, because you can only have a fill command replace 1 type of block per command. So we're just going to hit a plus here. We're going to select this box, Control-C to copy it. If you're on Windows, it'd probably be Command-C on like a Mac. And then we're going to paste it here, Control-V or Command-V. And we're going to change a couple things. Now, the first thing we're going to change is we're going to change out water to lava. Now, logically, you would think that this would be enough because, okay, this one will replace when there's a source block of water. This one would replace when there's a source block of lava. But placing frosted ice works kind of weird with lava. I'll show you a clip of what it looks like. As you can see, it only works sometimes. So what we're going to do to avoid the problem of the mysterious air blocks constantly appearing is we're going to change Minecraft Frosted Ice to just Minecraft Ice. Ice melts in the lava in the nether pretty quickly. However, it does have the side effect that it will kind of just end up deleting the lava because ice doesn't melt into lava, it melts into water, which immediately evaporates in the nether. Now, we have this great setup and all, but what happens when you swim? Because right now, all this is checking is there water beneath the player? If so, run this command. And we want to allow this player with this origin to be able to have a chance to swim under the water without just turning it into a giant ice cube. So for that, we're going to turn to condition. Because we're working with both water and lava, although it's a lot less likely if you go swimming in lava, we will need 2 conditions, so we're going to keep it as this type origins and that it automatically came up to. So the condition type we're going to use is the type origins fluid height. Basically what this does is it checks, are you in a certain fluids like water or lava into a certain amount. So let's just start with water since our first command here was having to do with water. So for fluid, we're going to type Minecraft : water. And for comparison, well, for this one, we don't got to get technical. We just want to make sure that this Frostwalker only runs when the player isn't in the water at all. So if we want to check, is this player in the water at all, we can switch the comparison to be greater than and compare that number to 0. So which basically means this box says, is the player in water any more than 0, so basically at all. But we don't want this command to run if we are in water. We want it to run if we aren't in water. So we're going to click on this inverted checkbox here. So now instead of checking, are we in water at all, this condition checks, are we not in water at all. And now we need to also check to make sure we're not in lava. So we'll just add another condition, copy this, paste this, switch this to being lava, if I spell it right, and we should be good. And now when we head back over to Minecraft, when we approach the water, we should see, I don't know why I lagged there, the water freezing around us, just like when we had Frostwalker boots on. And you can see the ice starting to crack and melt behind us, just like it does with Frostwalker. One cool thing it does that Frostwalker doesn't, though, is that you can actually sprint jump with this power, which you cannot do with Frostwalker in Minecraft Java. Now, one bad thing about this power makes it reactive, though, is that technically if we want to just, dig the ice straight beneath us to go in the water, well, it does make another layer of ice right beneath us, but it will just melt right away, so we can go right back underneath the water just fine. Or you can always use a water bucket and plonk it on there and then go straight into the water that way. Oh yeah, you can see, because we specified it only to work with source blocks of water, flowing water will not get frozen. Now if we head on over to the nether and ignore the mess from testing, you will see if we try to run across the lava, it freezes beneath us, much like the water. Although you won't see this ice start to crack because it's not frosted ice, it's just normal ice, but you will see that ice does in fact melt quite quickly in the nether. And so you can't stay here for long or it will make holes, but yeah, the holes do definitely kind of just delete the lava because ice does not in fact melt into lava. Yeah, just don't do this anywhere you care about what the lava looks like. So the next power I'm going to show you how to do is to, well, in this case, this power is going to allow you to clear negative effects from players who are around you in a radius, although you can use this kind of setup to make a variety of things. So for this power type, we're going to use Old Reliable Origins Active Self, the one where you click a button and it activates a power. Speaking of buttons, for the key, we are just going to pick the next one we haven't used, from the Origins Extra Keybinds mod. So you have to have this mod installed to use one of these keys, which I believe at this point is the septenary key. So copy this without the space here and paste it here. And we'll just pick a rando sprite from here. Let's just say, sure, we'll grab this one and we'll pick 10, whatever that one is. And we'll give it a nice cooldown of 30 seconds, which is kind of fast, but we'll just start with that for now. So now the main part of the power. How do we actually make this power? Clear poison and wither effects from players within a 10 block radius. Well, for this, we're going to use the entity action, the main part of the power, of type area of effect. And by default, this radius is 16, and the radius is the range in blocks in which this power will take effect. For this one, I just made it 10, because why not? You can make whatever you want. Include target here would make it so that whatever thing you run here will also affect the player doing this command. You could include it or you could not. I'll just not for this one. What by entity condition means is basically, do you want to only run whatever you've set up here only if a certain condition is met? So for this one, we're going to make it only affect players. So for that, we're going to click on this and use the condition type target condition. So we specify that this condition is for the targets of this power, not the person doing this power. And for that condition type, we will choose entity type, which is what kind of entity, like a horse, a zombie, etc. this is. And since we only want this to affect players, we'll just type in Minecraft:player. So this will only affect players. Now for the main part of this, the by entity action. What do we want this thing to do to all players within a 10 block radius? Well, first we need to specify that this is a target action. So this action will apply to the targets, not to the player doing this. And then for action, well, since we want to clear more than one kind of potion effect, we'll just start off with using Origins and to run multiple actions. And then for our first individual action, well, clearing effects is actually quite easy. We use the power conveniently named Clear Effect. And then all we have to do is type what potion effect we want to clear. For this one, we're just going to do poison and wither. So for the first one, we'll type Minecraft:poison. The second one we'll set up in the same way that we have here with Origins, Clear Effect, and then Minecraft:wither. You could set this up to clear as many different types of potion effects as you want. You just had to add more of these, but we're just going to do these two for this example. So now if we head back on over to Minecraft, if we look at our clear negative effects power, it looks like I've set my septenary key to H. And so if we happen to get within a 10 block radius of a player who happens to have poison or wither, and we hit the key, we'll notice that this player no longer has the poison. But we still do because we didn't set this power to also affect us, just another player. And it should work just the same way, now that our cooldown is up, if we give them the wither effect, let's say 30 seconds. If we hit the H key, we should see that immediately that effect is cleared from them. And as an example of more kind of things you can do with the active self area of effect combo, you could give a sort of discount time stop where you can freeze all the players around you in place for a brief time by using the exact same setup as the last power with the active self area of effect, the target condition of entity type only affecting for players. But for by entity action, we're going to start off with target action like the other one, but for action, we're actually just going to use Origins apply effect. And we're actually going to use these effects things so we can just add multiple effects into one thing. And so we're going to do Minecraft slowness. We'll make this last 15 seconds, so 300 ticks. Amplifier of 9 to give us slowness level 10. And we make the slowness level 10 because that's enough to stop a player from being able to move. If we go too crazy, I think their camera will probably be so zoomed in they can't see anything. Let's just hide the particles on the icon for funsies, so it sort of looks more like a time stop instead of a potion effect. And then we're also going to give the mining fatigue potion effect for the same amount of seconds. Let's just make it as high as possible because why not? And then we're also going to add Minecraft weakness, if I can type it correctly. Same 300 tick, aka 15-second duration. Let's give this an amplifier of 9 as well, and also hide the particles. So now this will prevent players from moving, although they can technically still spin in place. They won't be able to break anything, and they won't be able to do any damage all at once for 15 seconds. Oh yeah, we've changed the HUD render and the key that we used to activate this power from our last power. So if we head on back over to Minecraft, let me look at our origin really quick. You can see I put my octonary key on you randomly. So then if I get within the radius of another player and press that key, well, it won't affect us because we set this power not to affect us, but they will not be able to move. They could spin in place, but trying to walk forward does nothing. You could see breaking the block is basically never going to happen because of how slow you're breaking it. And you'll see if they try to attack me. Not only does it take 4 million billion years for the sword to go anywhere because of the mining fatigue, because of the weakness, it's not like it would have done anything anyway. So yeah, basically, for all intents and purposes, frozen in time except the ability to spin. Now, the next power I'm going to show you how to make is a power that allows you to summon a mob or multiple to fight for the player. Now, first things first, credit where credit is due. I would have had no idea how to even get started on making mobs you summon be able to attack things if it weren't for this YouTube video tutorial, Zombie Army Making Power by Wilder. I'll link this video in the description. Now, the power I'm going to show you how to make has basically the same framework as this power in the video, but I massively simplified one of the core mechanics and made some other minor tweaks as well. And there were a few more details I wanted to explain that aren't covered in this video here, so I figured I'd still make a tutorial on how to do this. Now, another important note, the way that I simplify this uses the /damage command, which wasn't added to Minecraft Java until version 1.19.4. So this setup will not work for versions before this update. And yet another thing before we actually start making the power, there are limits to what kind of mobs you can summon with this power that will actually do damage to other entities for you. Because this power that we're going to make relies on the mob infighting mechanic, which basically just says in Minecraft, certain mobs, when they're hit by another mob, will try to attack that mob that hit them. Now, obviously, not all mobs do this. Like, if you hit a pig in Minecraft, it's not going to try to hit you back. So you unfortunately cannot summon a pig army to fight for you. This page here in the Minecraft wiki provides this helpful chart that gives information on the infighting behavior of different mobs. Now, for this power, you can technically use any mob that does retaliate. So, like, you could use it with a spider just fine. But if you do that and you make a power that summons, like, say, 3 mobs, well, only one spider is going to target the thing you tell it to target. The other spiders won't join in. If you want multiple summons to attack the same mob, you will need to choose a mob type in this category here, where if one mob in this pack gets attacked and decides to retaliate, then others of the same group will too. So okay, now that we've got that out of the way, let's get to actually making the power. So the first thing we're going to do is switch this here from simple to multiple. Basically, all this does is mean that we can stick multiple powers into just this one file. Now, this isn't technically necessary. With this one, you could make multiple files, each with one power, but I feel like it's a lot easier personally to put all of the components of this one power in one thing instead of separating them out. So anyways, the first thing we're going to need to do is hit this plus sign here, and we are going to make a power of type origins action on callback. Now, what the heck is action on callback? Basically, action on callback executes an action on a quote-unquote callback, which, depending on how you set it, could be like joining the world, picking the origins. There are a lot of different options, but for this one, we're only going to need 2 of these: entity action chosen, which is run this action when the player first chooses their origin. And we want to keep this execute when chosen when orb checked, so that it also applies when a player uses an orb of origin to pick their origin. And then the other one we'll need to use for this is entity action lost, which will run whatever action you put in here whenever you lose this power. So like when you choose to pick another origin, for instance. So let's start with the entity action chosen. We're going to choose type origins and then we are going to add a few different origins execute commands. Now the first command we're going to type in here is /team add tutorial team. Now you may wonder what the heck that means. Well, basically, Minecraft has a team system that's set up basically entirely with commands that allows you to add players or other entities into teams, and then you can like modify their behavior within the team. Like you can make it so that you can't attack other players on your team, or all the names of the players on your team are all blue or something like that. But what we're interested in for this power is the fact that for whatever reason, if you put a mob on the same team as you, the player, that mob won't attack you anymore. Even if it's like a zombie, if you and the zombie are on the same team, the zombie doesn't want to attack you. And that is the property we're going to use to make our summons not attack us. So what this command here is doing is it is adding a new team to the game called tutorial team. Now it's great and all, but we need to actually add ourselves to this team. So we're going to make our next command /team join tutorial _ team, which will automatically make us join that team. Now, entity action lost. When a player chooses a different origin besides this origin, we would want them no longer to be in this tutorial team, so we are going to choose another origins execute command power, and we're going to say /team leave @S, which will make this player leave their team when they no longer have this origin. So with that part set up, now let's get to actually summoning the, in this case, husks. So we're going to add another power here. We're going to use our favorite power, origins active self. We have so many powers that at this point we need key.origins.non-array-active. We'll give it a cooldown of, we'll just give it 1,000 ticks for now. And then HUD render, let's just grab this one and go with, delete the extra tab space and go with bar number 4. Okay, now the actual entity action part. We're going to use, yet again, origins execute command. We're going to use the command that we used in the last tutorial /summon. But this time, we've got to put a little bit more into it. Because we don't just want to summon any old husk. We want to make sure that we summon a husk that will be on our same tutorial team so that it doesn't attack us. So after /summon Minecraft:/Husk, we'll put the coordinates tilde, 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 so that it spawns right where the player is, so you could change that if you wanted to. And to specify that it needs to be on the tutorial team, we're going to use brace capital T team colon quotation marks tutorial underscore team closing quotation marks and close the braces. This little extra MBT data tag basically just says summon a husk that is on the tutorial team. Now, for the next part, we've got to actually make the way for our husks to actually attack what we want them to attack. So for this, we're going to use 2 powers, set up very similarly, but I'll just start with one. So first, we're going to start with type origins attacker action when hit, which basically just means that this will execute an action on any entity that attacks the player. Now, what action do we want to execute on the entity who hit us? Well, like we've used earlier in this power, we want to use the entity action of type execute command. Now for the next one, this is where it gets a little bit more complicated, but it's way less complicated than the original in this video. We're going to use the /damage command now to basically pretend that our husk that we summoned was attacked by whatever entity attacked us, which will in turn make the husk want to attack that entity who attacked us. So for this command, we're going to use /damage, which allows us to not just do damage to an entity, but to say, quote unquote, who dealt the damage to an entity. So we're going to start with /damage, and then we need to specify what entity is getting damaged. Now, the /damage command can only damage one entity at a time. So we need to tell it to specifically target one of our husks that we summoned. So to do that, well, we'll start with @E, which is all entities, but we can narrow it down to only one entity using some extra components. So after the @E, we'll type a bracket, and then we will first start by saying type equals husk. This narrows it down to only husks. Then we'll type in a comma, and do not put a space after the comma. And we will write next team equals tutorial underscore team. This will limit it to only husks that are on the tutorial team. Now, the damage command can only affect one of them, so in case we had multiple summons around, we need to put another comma and write limit equals 1, which means that this command can only target up to one husk. And then we're going to add one more thing here, sort equals nearest. That basically just means this will look for the husk that is nearest to wherever this command was executed, which, because of the power type we did, where it's an action executed on /rom the entity who attacked us, it will look for the closest husk that we summoned to whatever hit us. That way, if you have a husk that got lost a bajillion miles off somewhere, that won't be the one that's getting aggro on this mob that's way too far away for it to even notice. Okay, now that we have all these little specifications, we're going to close this bracket, head a space, and now we need to tell it how much damage we want it to deal. Since we don't actually want to hurt our summons with this, we're going to type in 0, and then hit a space, and then we're going to type in what kind of damage we want this to deal. Now, this isn't too big of a deal which one you pick, but you just basically need to pick a damage type that whatever entity you are summoning is not immune to. So like if you were summoning blazes, don't pick fire damage because then it won't actually work. And then certain kinds of damage, like if you use Minecraft:/Arrow, that will do knockback damage, so then it will like knock the husk back for no reason. So I've just used Minecraft:/Explosion, which is, as it sounds, explosion damage, which husks are not immune to. And it's just something simple, easy to type. And now the part where we actually say what attacked this husk. So we're going to type in the word bye, and then we'll just type in a symbol at symbol S, because this command is being executed basically as this entity who attacked us, so we can just use at symbol S to refer to this entity who attacked us. Now for the final component of this power, we'll add one more box with its power of type, origins, target action on hit, which basically just executes an action on any entity that the player hits. Now, what kind of action are we going to execute on the mob that we hit? Well, the exact same one here. So we can just select this, Control or Command C to copy it, and Control or Command V to paste. We're doing the exact same thing here as here. So basically, whether we get hit by some entity or we decide to hit the entity ourselves, either way, our summoned husk is tricked into thinking it's been damaged by that other entity, and so then our summoned husk wants to attack that entity. So now if we head on back over to Minecraft, I've set my origin back to human, aka no origin, and so if I do /team list, which will tell me what teams are in the world, you'll notice there are none for now. But then if we choose to select the tutorial origin, suddenly there's a new team, the tutorial team. And if we look for the specific members, we'll see that now we're on that team. And if we decide to hit our non-area actions key, which I've set to I, we have summoned a husk, which, as you notice, even though in survival, isn't attacking us. Because, if you run that last command again, we'll see that this long spam of letters and numbers, which is a husk, is on the same team as us. And for whatever reason, mobs on the same team don't attack you. Now, for the actual interesting part. Well, let's say we spawn some poor pig, and we decide we want some bacon. You can see there the husk appeared to take damage, although it didn't actually. And now it's hunting down the pig. And now what if we get hit by, say, this random zombie? So you can see there the husk appeared to take damage, so it didn't actually. And now I fall in a hole. But the husk is now chasing after the zombie, which is failing to catch, so we'll help it out a bit. And then we watch the Battle of the Ages. And then we can see our husk took out the zombie that attacked us. Now, I do gotta note, there is a bit of a limitation on this whole thing. Mobs can only aggro on one mob at once. So, for instance, if we decided we wanted a whole lot of bacon and decided to hit all of these pigs, even though the husk is getting hit, registering as if it's getting hit by all of them, it's very much focused on this one pig right here. Which is failing to catch, and it doesn't care about these pigs anymore. We'd have to re-hit them for it to notice, and then it'll come over for that pig. So these next couple things I'm going to show you how to do aren't exactly powers of themselves necessarily. I'm just going to talk a little bit more about different ways you can modify resource bars, which, if you remember from the first tutorial video with the levitation power, can basically be a way to have this number for how long you could use a power, how many times you could use a power, etc. In that levitation power example, I showed how to make a power where you basically have the ability to use a power for a certain amount of time, but you can make a resource bar increase or decrease a lot of different ways. So first, this is one where we actually really do want to change it from simple to multiple, not just for organizational purposes, although you can technically have a resource bar add its own file and then reference it by its file directory. Actually, why don't I show you a quick example of that now? So you'll see here in a completely different Origins pack, my Half a Blessing Double a Curse Origins pack, I have this resource here set up as its own file. I just called it lay resource because why not? And in some powers, such as this tall one, we reference this resource, even though it's in a different file, but instead of being able to just type the asterisk colon asterisk underscore and then whatever we called, whatever little box we used, we reference the directory of the file that has the resource and only the resource, which in this here, I just have this, the habdeck underscore origins, which is the name of this pack. You could probably just replace that with a 0, and then colon, and then the name of the power that contains the resource, which in this case is lay resource, which means this is looking for this resource here. But as you can see, that's definitely a more complicated way to do it. So it's a lot more simple to just keep your resource and the power that uses that resource in one file if possible. So anyways, now let's start by setting up the resource. I did kind of show how to do this in the first tutorial video, but I'll just show it quickly again. We hit the plus sign here. We want to name this resource, but you can name whatever you want. You'll just have to keep in mind what you've named it here when you reference it. And we use the type conveniently called origins resource. We set our minimum value, which let's just make it 0 to make it straightforward, and our max value, we'll just make it 12. And start value is, do we want to start this like empty, full, somewhere in the middle? We'll start it empty. And then HUD renders what little sprite you want to use. Let's just pick from the first one. Number 6, sure. Now let's say we want to make this resource, instead of going up over time using action over time, we want to make it go up every time the player manages to successfully eliminate an entity. Well, for that, let's add another power here. And we'll use the type origins action self action on kill, which does kind of exactly what it sounds like and executes an action on the player whenever you kill something. And all we would do if we wanted this to up the resource here is we'd go to entity action and then go down to modify resource, type in the name of our resource, which since we've named it resource here has our standard asterisk colon asterisk underscore and then resource. If I could spell it correctly. Make sure you spell it correctly or it won't work. And that will be it. And then we have to say how we want this to modify this resource. We'll just say addition of 1. So that means that every time you kill an entity, this little resource here goes up by 1. So if we head on back over to Minecraft and you look at the top bar of these little resource bars here, the one that looks like it has an ender pearl next to it, you notice it's currently empty. But if we kill this pig, which is taking forever because we have weakness in the sun, then you'll notice our bar has now gone up 1. And the same thing would be true if we killed, say, this random zombie. I was going to put it in the lake so it didn't burn, but you know what? Sure. You see, our bar has gone up again. And it would keep doing that and doing that as we killed more and more. Now, if you're going to use this for power, you'd probably want to make whatever power you have, like use up 1 charge of the resource by making the usage of that power modify the resource by subtracting 1 for it or something like that. The next power I'm going to show you how to make is, once again, not really a full power, but more of how to make a resource bar that increases in its total value that it can reach up to based on XP levels. Now, much like the other powers that have resource bars, the first thing we're going to do is switch simple here to multiple so we can put it all in this one file. And we're also going to similarly, just like the last one, start with a resource. We'll assign its minimum to 0, its maximum to 10. Start with a value of 0. For HUD render, let's just grab this one. And let's say 20, sure. Okay, so now we have a resource, but how do we make its base maximum increase based on what XP level we have? Well, maybe there's a better way to do this, but I didn't find any way to change the maximum of the resource itself. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to make a power that contains multiple resources. One that applies for when you're on XP levels 0 through 4, one for 5 through 9, and one for 10 or more. But they're all going to look like the same bar. So the first thing we're going to do with this resource here is we're going to make this one that only has a max value of 10 only apply when you have less than 5 XP levels. So we're going to go to condition here, pick the condition conveniently named XP levels, and we're going to say we want this resource to only apply when you have less than 5 XP levels. Now when it comes to renaming this little box, because we're going to technically have 3 different resources in this one power, I'm going to name this one Resource 1. And so then let's make the other resources for when you have 5 through 9 levels and 10 or more levels. So we're going to start by copying this whole box, paste it, and paste it again. And so this one will make Resource 2. And we want it to apply when you have 5 to 9 levels. So we're actually going to have to switch this condition to a condition of type and, because it's not just less than a number or more than a number, it's between 2 numbers. So we'll make 2 conditions of type XP levels. And we'll set this one as greater than or equal to 5. And this one as less than 10. So now this resource bar will only be applied to the player when they have 5 levels, 6 levels, 7 levels, 8 levels, or 9 XP levels. And we're going to change the max value of this resource to actually be 15 rather than 10, but we're going to keep the same HUD render so it looks like it's the same bar, even though it's not. Okay, now we're going to go to our third box. We're going to name this Resource 3. And for our condition, we will say greater than or equal to 10 levels. And we'll make our max value for this resource 20. Now we have 3 resources, but what about when we want to make an action that uses one of these resources? Well, we can't just make one action because we have technically 3 different resources. We have to make 3 actions. So let's add, say, Origin's self-action on hit, which just runs an action on the player when they hit an entity. And then we'll say that this action modifies the resource. And our resource here, since we'll make this correspond to the first resource, is actually **resource 1, because it's specifically this one, which we named Resource 1. And we'll just say it adds 1 point to the resource. Now, since this is using our Resource 1 bar, which we only have when we have less than 5 XP levels, let's just add this exact same condition here, where we want this action to only apply when we have less than 5 XP levels. Now, what about when we have 5 to 9 XP levels? Well, we can just copy this box here, add another box, paste it here, grab the condition from our second resource bar, paste this right on here, and we can keep the same self-action on hit concept, but instead of modifying our Resource 1 bar, we want to modify Resource 2. And then very similarly, for when we have 10 or more levels, and we would use our Resource 3 bar that goes up to 20 points, we'll just add another box, copy and paste the one we just worked on, paste this, take the condition from resource 3 and copy it, and paste it. And then we want to modify resource 3 rather than resource 2. Okay, right. Future Juke had interrupting again to say I forgot something. These resource bars, for some dumb reason, even if they only work when you have certain XP levels, will show up all the time unless you go to the condition under HUD render, copy exactly this condition, the condition for the resource bar itself, and then just paste it right in here. I don't know why that's necessary, but for whatever reason it is, so you can just copy that, paste it right into the HUD render parts. Oops, not there. So now that we're in Minecraft, you can see the third little resource bar, the one with the little orange person running, is currently empty. And right now we have 0 levels of XP. But if we come across some random creature and start punching it, which I forget I cannot do because I have weakness, and I start attacking it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to fill up that resource bar because we have less than 5 levels of XP. But then if we increase our XP level, now that we've hit 5 levels, you notice the bar seemed to empty out. Well, because now it's switched to the XP bar for 5 through 9 levels. And you'll see now if we try to hit entities, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 to fill up that bar completely. And then if we go up to level 10, now the bar appears to empty out again. And now it would take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Gotta get a new sword. What number was I just on? Something. 20 hits to fill up that resource bar. Now the next power I'm going to show you how to make is how to make a power that allows you to teleport back to a location you've set. So for this one, since we gotta run 2 separate things, I'm going to switch it from simple to multiple. And now the first thing we gotta do is find a way to set the location of where we're gonna teleport to. Probably the most straightforward way to do this is to summon an entity at the player's location with a specific tag so that you specifically teleport back to the entity later. However, there is a drawback to doing this. It does mean that if you had 2 players who had the same power, you might end up teleporting to the location the other person's set. But you could fix this by changing one person's power to use a different tag. You'll see the tags we're talking about in a minute. So the first thing we're going to add here is our power we've used a bajillion times, Origins Active Self. At this point for the key, we are on the last one from the Origins Extra Keybinds mod, key.origins.dnary_active. So now for HUD render, let's just pick this resource bar, number 17. And we'll give this a cooldown of 100 ticks. Sure, that's kind of short, but whatever. Now the main entity action part. For this, we are going to use the type execute commands. And the command we're going to execute is summoning the entity that we're going to later be able to teleport back to. Now, obviously, we don't want to summon something like a pig that can walk around. You could use a variety of things, like an armor stand is always a good one, but to make it look a little more fun, I'm going to summon an item display. Now, an item display is basically like a 3D model of an item that's kind of just floating in the air. They can allow you to do some decorative stuff with it. But an important note here that item displays and stuff were not introduced until this snapshot, which was a snapshot for 1.19.4. So if working with an earlier version of this, I would just replace this with an armor stand, which have been in the game for ages. So anyways, when it comes for summoning an item display entity or like a block display, depending on if it's like a sword or like a grass block, there's this helpful generator here on this minecraftmaps.com website where you can choose if you want a block display, item display, or text display, and then what item. I just chose another star because why not? And you could technically make it like bigger and stuff, but I'm not messing with that for this. And it gives you this nice command here, which you can copy, and then you can just paste it here. But there is one thing we need to change, because we want to give this a specific tag so that the player can specifically teleport to this item display we summoned and not any other item display that could be in the world if there were some there for some reason. So we're going to go right here between these two braces, and we're going to type comma, capital T tags, colon, bracket, quotation marks, TP, close quotation marks, close the brackets. All this does is adds an MBT data tag to our item display so that we can more easily identify it. Now, there's one more quick thing I'm going to add to this box here. While we could technically use two different keys for this power, one to set this thing we're going to teleport to, and then one to teleport to it, we can also use the same key for both things by distinguishing whether or not your player is sneaking. So for setting the location, let's say we don't want the player to be sneaking. So we can add the condition of type origins sneaking and invert it. So this will only run if the player hits this key while not sneaking. And so then for our next component of the power, we can make it only happen while the player is sneaking so that we can use this same keybind for both parts of the power. And oh yeah, we're going to set this power to also be active self with the same key as the other one. Oops, that was not the right thing. Copy it. This and paste it here. And for entity action for the second part, we're going to use type origins and because we need to run two commands. Now, the first command is the main thing we want to do. It's to teleport the player back to this little item display we summoned. And so for that, we're just going to use /TP ourselves to start with that symbol E for all entities, but we're going to narrow it down to bracket tag equals TP. So it will only teleport us to entities with the tag TP, which will only be the thing we summoned. But in case we accidentally summon two of these things, we also want to add comma limit equals 1 because you can only teleport to one location. Now, one thing to note here is it looks, in my testing, it seemed that if you ended up summoning two of these item displays, then this will always teleport you to the first one you summoned. Now, okay, after we teleport you back to this little thing, we want to get rid of it so that if you want to set a different location to teleport to, you can. So for that, we're going to do a simple /kill at symbol E tag equals TP. Now, anything with this tag TP will be destroyed. So we can set a brand new location to teleport to, and we aren't leaving item displays behind. So now if we head back on over to Minecraft, I've set my dictionary active key to comma. So then if I press comma, you'll see here has appeared this little nether star item display. It's kind of in the ground because, that's where we're standing at, but you could make it spawn higher if you wanted to. And now, if I walk away a bit, and then I shift, I press comma, I teleport right back to where that nether star was. But now the nether star item display has been deleted, so if I tried to hit shift comma again, I wouldn't teleport anywhere because the command got rid of that item display. And you'll also see too, if we were to summon one here, one item display here, and another over here. If we then try to teleport to them, we got teleported to the first one we placed, even if the other one was closer. Although technically you could change that if you wanted to by adding sort equals nearest in this part of the command. Alright, well that was the third part of this series of Origin Creator tutorials. This video ended up being really long. I haven't finished editing yet, but I'm thinking it's going to probably be at least an hour. The file of the origin that I created in this video will be available for download in a link in the description. And totally feel free to copy the powers and edit them and use them how you like. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. If you have more questions about one of the powers I did or about doing a different power, you can always ask and I can reply to your comment or potentially show a different power in a future video. Although it might be a little bit of time until the next Origin Creator video. I say as if I didn't already take over a month to make this one because I have some other things I want to work on. But if you watched this video, thank you for watching. And if you liked it, maybe consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe if you want to. But yeah.